She Who Roared for Mercy. Chapter 5, The Weight of Forgiveness. The word remained in BJ's mind. Forgiveness. He looked across Lake Michigan at the enormous creatures. They had stopped fighting. They had stopped advancing. For the moment, Chicago was safe. But BJ understood something that made him uneasy. Stopping a battle was not the same thing as creating peace. Peace had to survive what came after the fighting stopped. And forgiveness would be much harder than simply putting down a weapon. She Who Roared for Mercy stood quietly beside him. BJ looked up. You know something. She lowered her head. What? BJ listened. You've forgiven them before. Her enormous eyes became sorrowful. Some. BJ nodded. And others. She looked toward the horizon. I tried. BJ understood. Trying to forgive someone who had harmed you was not the same as pretending the harm never happened. Forgiveness did not erase consequences. It did not mean ignoring danger. It did not mean trusting someone who had not demonstrated that they could be trusted. BJ knew that even in his own life, forgiveness required wisdom. He remembered the words of Colossians chapter 3 verse 13. Forgiving one another, if any man have a quarrel against any. BJ looked toward the creatures. But forgiveness has to be more than words. One of the enormous creatures slowly approached She Who Roared for Mercy. BJ became alert. The creature stopped several hundred yards away. Its enormous eyes remained fixed on her. Then it roared. BJ listened. I hated you. She Who Roared for Mercy remained silent. The creature continued. I believed that you had betrayed us. She lowered her head. I was wrong. BJ looked at her. She listened. The creature's voice became quieter. I am sorry. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then She Who Roared for Mercy stepped forward. I forgive you. The creature lowered its head. BJ watched them. No celebration. No dramatic victory. Just two enormous creatures standing quietly beside a lake that had witnessed their conflict. BJ smiled. Sometimes forgiveness was quiet. Sometimes healing began without anyone else even noticing. Then another creature approached. This one did not lower its head. It remained defensive. BJ immediately recognized the difference. What's wrong? She Who Roared for Mercy answered. He does not want forgiveness. BJ looked at the creature. That's his choice. The creature roared. I will never trust her. BJ nodded. You don't have to. The creature stared at him. BJ continued. But you don't have to destroy her either. The creature remained silent. You can choose distance. BJ pointed toward the lake. You can choose boundaries. Then he pointed toward Chicago. And you can choose not to harm innocent people. The creature slowly lowered its head. BJ understood. Forgiveness and reconciliation were not always the same thing. Sometimes forgiveness could happen before trust was restored. Sometimes peace required boundaries. Sometimes wisdom meant recognizing that someone could be forgiven without immediately being welcomed back into the same position of trust. BJ looked toward She Who Roared for Mercy. That's okay. She nodded. I know. The military commander approached BJ. I've been listening. BJ turned. What do you think? The commander looked across the lake. I think I was wrong about something. BJ waited. I thought the only way to keep Chicago safe was to destroy anything that could threaten it. BJ nodded. And now? The commander looked toward the creatures. Now I believe that safety also requires understanding what we're dealing with. BJ smiled. That's discernment. The commander nodded. But don't misunderstand me. I won't. If any of them attack civilians, we will protect them. BJ answered. Yes, sir. The commander looked at him. You agree? Absolutely. BJ paused. Mercy does not mean abandoning responsibility. The commander nodded. For the first time, the two men understood one another. Then BJ heard something. A whisper. Not from the creatures. From the city. He turned. People were beginning to gather along the barricades. Some were frightened. Some were curious. Some were angry. Some were praying. Others were simply watching. A man shouted, "Why should we trust them?" BJ looked toward him. We shouldn't automatically trust them. The man seemed surprised. BJ continued. Trust should be earned. Another person shouted, "Then why are you protecting them?" BJ answered. Because protecting innocent life includes protecting people from unnecessary violence, and it also means protecting ourselves from becoming cruel. The crowd became quieter. BJ continued. We don't have to choose between being naive and being hateful. He looked toward she who roared for mercy. We can be cautious and compassionate. He looked toward the other creatures. We can be discerning and merciful. Then he looked toward the city. And we can be courageous without becoming violent simply because we're afraid. A little boy standing behind the barricade stepped forward. His mother held his hand. The boy looked toward she who roared for mercy. Is she really a monster? The question traveled through the crowd. BJ looked at the enormous creature. Then he looked at the child. What do you think? The boy thought for a moment. I think she's scared. BJ smiled. Sometimes people and creatures can look frightening when they're frightened. The boy looked up at him. Is she good? BJ paused. He knew better than to give a child an overly simple answer. I think that she is trying to do what is right. The boy looked toward her. She who roared for mercy lowered her head. The boy smiled. Then he waved. She slowly raised one enormous hand. The boy's eyes widened. He waved again. She waved back. For the first time that morning, Chicago smiled. But BJ did not. Not completely. Because he heard something else. A distant sound. A low vibration beneath the earth. He looked toward the ground. What is that? She who roared for mercy immediately became tense. BJ looked up. What? She answered. The others are coming. BJ frowned. More creatures. She nodded. How many? She hesitated. Many. BJ looked toward the horizon. Are they coming to attack? She shook her head. No. Then why are they coming? Her answer frightened him. They are coming because they heard that we stopped fighting. BJ stared at her. That's a good thing. She shook her head again. No. BJ waited. They do not understand peace. BJ's expression changed. Then what do they understand? She looked toward him. Power. BJ became silent. He understood. The creatures who had chosen peace had done so voluntarily. But others might believe peace was a sign of weakness. They might come expecting surrender. They might come expecting domination. They might come expecting the creatures already gathered around Chicago to submit. BJ looked toward the military commander. How long? The commander checked the instruments. Not long. BJ looked toward she who roared for mercy. Can they be reasoned with? She answered honestly. I don't know. BJ nodded. That's okay. He turned toward the city. We'll find out. That evening, Chicago did something it had never done before. It prepared not for war. It prepared for a conversation. Emergency officials established a protected area. Scientists continued gathering information. Military forces remained ready to defend civilians. Religious leaders continued praying. Families stayed together. And BJ stood beside she who roared for mercy as darkness settled over the city. The lights of Chicago reflected across Lake Michigan. For a brief moment, everything was peaceful. Then the water began moving again. One enormous shape appeared. Then another. Then another. Dozens of eyes emerged from the darkness. BJ slowly looked across the lake. She who roared for mercy stood beside him. BJ whispered. Well. She lowered her head. What? BJ took a deep breath. I guess it's time to see whether peace can survive an audience. She gave a quiet roar. BJ listened. What did you say? Her answer was simple. I am not afraid. BJ smiled. Neither am I. But deep within his heart, BJ knew that courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was choosing what was right while fear was still present. And tonight, Chicago was about to learn whether an entire city could do the same. The creatures stepped from the darkness. And one enormous voice spoke across the lake. We have come to decide who will rule. BJ looked toward she who roared for mercy. Then toward the creatures. He shook his head. No. The creatures became silent. BJ stepped forward. Nobody is ruling tonight. A deep roar answered. BJ raised his voice. Tonight, we're going to listen. And the lake went silent. The next roar would determine whether that silence became peace, or the beginning of the greatest battle that Chicago had ever witnessed.